Hi guys.
Hi guys, we're back. It's Ramon.
And it's him.
And it's him again. On a grisly, horrid, wet day, what better to be doing than being indoors with some nice guitars, some warm amplifiers, making a video. I'm thrilled to start this show with that song. That's Greenie by Peter Green, along with John McVie on bass and Mick Fleetwood on drums after the Blues Breakers and really very early Fleetwood Mac.
So we got it in the end of 1966?
66, yeah, and you know, a long time ago.
Question, did he play a Vox AC30 or a Marshall on that?
So, I've no idea. My feeling listening to it's one of my favourite pieces of music ever. I've been listening to it since I was a teenager. I've been trying to play it badly ever since. I think it's a Vox. It feels like a Vox, but I don't know.
Well, maybe that sparkly top end.
Just beautiful, you know. Anyway, here we are. The reason that we started with that piece of music is because we have got two, they're Les Pauls, okay, but they're both, what are we going to call these, replicas?
Yeah, replicas, yeah.
Replica Les Pauls today,
Yeah.
Okay. Describe that one first, because that's yours.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a long kind of history with this particular guitar, the maker Darren Orton. It's called Daniel's guitar, which this one, we can show this headstock because this has got Daniels on the headstock here.
Yep.
So it doesn't have Gibson. And this is kind of my main workhorse. I'm currently playing sort of 1966 style British blues. And this is really made for that, really, through a JTM 45, you know.
And it's a really, really nice guitar. I mean, we've had Darren on the show before. If you look back, I might even put a link on this to it, but he's been on the show with us before. And Darren's based south of London, and he does make some very fine guitars. And he's got a real knack for picking up all the old vibe and so on. He's also really good at finishing guitars, you know, so his finishes are fantastic. So I mean, he's definitely, if you're in this kind of market, I would certainly say he's one of the guys to consider, no question. I think we should probably make a mention at one point. I've just noticed your Christmas present is in action.
Yeah, Bob very kindly. It's when you got great friends.
I'm that cheap. They're £5.99, fellas. It's not a big present, but it's useful.
Yeah, because this strap is. I love this kind of. It's just like a Mexican sort of strap, you know, and I've worn the holes out of it.
Yeah.
So this kind of, I don't know who makes it. Diodario.
Diodario.
Yeah.
It's £5.99.
Yeah, really cool, man.
Incredible piece of kit. I'm so glad you use it.
So I've got my favourite strap with my favourite guitar.
So it means you can have a valuable guitar with a cherished old strap that's a bit worn and threadbare, and it's not going to fall off and drop the guitar and break it.
No.
Brilliant. Hey, anyway, back to the knitting.
I will say this is 8.4 pounds. So it's a really nice, it's a nice weight, nice size neck, nice finish on the back of the neck. And really great fret work.
I'm gonna weigh these both with my luggage weigher and put it up on the super in this video here, just so you've got an idea of the weight. But these are both Les Paul replicas. I nearly used the K word. Okay, so that's yours, right? This one belongs to a friend of mine called Tony, who is a great luthier in his own right. He acquired this as a chassis late last year, and has basically re-finished or whatever.
But this is actually a Stig guitar chassis.
It's a Stig. Now, I hadn't heard of the Stig. You had?
I had, yeah. I played a couple.
Stig is apparently he's an elderly now woodworking craftsman.
I think he's, as far as I've heard, he's retired.
Right, he's retired. Yeah. So this is probably one of the last ones.
Yeah.
And Tony picked this up as a chassis with the intention of basically doing a refinish and a restoration project on it. So that's about complete, although that is more or less finished. This is still a bit of a work in progress.
Because the kind of red has to fade out.
Yeah, basically we got some good high-res photographs of Bernie Marsden's Beast while he was doing this. So he's kind of modelled the overall vibe and the finish of this guitar on the Beast. But this guitar hasn't really seen much light at age yet, so this guitar is still much brighter red than it ought to be. The idea is the red's going to fade down. Likewise, the back at the moment is still a bit orangey. You can see, and the back of the neck is really quite orange.
Whereas the back of my one is
darker. And we'll get my real one out in the second part of this video. You'll see my my real one sits in between the two colours. The back sits between the two colours. The other thing is this is still, it hasn't been played and worn very much. When this gets a bit of wear, that's got a bit more wear on it. And you can really feel the difference. That's a 59 shaped neck, so it's a more of a D shape, but still got plenty of girth in it. This is slightly fatter. This feels to me more like my 58s, more of a C shape, so deeper. And you know the way it goes: 58s are Cs, 59s are deep Ds, and 60s are much flatter Ds. That's the hierarchy. Although of course everyone is different. They both sound terrific acoustic. They're both lively, which they should be, quite bright. Ramon's got 11s on his, and he's got them top wrapped over the bridge.
Yeah.
And it feels really slinky.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It feels really.
It's pretty. Yeah. You know, you can bend it.
A bit, but I mean, you've got, you know, you've grown up fingers. I mean, I've still got kind of little soft.
But they're big hands. These are man's hands.
Effete fingers, right? But I can play that with 11s, no problem. It's great. This has got 10s on it, and it's not top wrapped. It's straight through, conventionally strung.
Interesting. Are these gold at all? Are they?
Well, they look brass to me.
Brass.
Yeah.
Gold.
They look like the nickel plate is wearing off the brass to me.
Right.
I mean, obviously these are going to be I think these are going to be all high-end replica parts. I think the tailpiece might be kosher.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing, one of the reasons we wanted to do this show so much is that the pickups in these guitars are the same. Okay, they're both from Alan Dingwall. So tell us something about.
Yeah.
them.
So I mean, this goes back to when I used to have a relationship of kinds with Mojo pickups, and then I asked Mojo pickups to make me a replica of Peter Green's pickups, but instead of flipping the magnet, I told a guy called Mark there to reverse wind it. You know, and this was going back a few years. You can check it out on the Guitar Show YouTube channel. But then, you know, and it got pretty close, but there was something maybe not quite right. Something wasn't quite right about those pickups, but you know, I don't know what the exact science behind it was. But Alan sort of has really done all the research on it and has discovered all the secrets, obviously, from Sam Lee. Sam Lee is a famous repair guy who famously made a guitar for glam rocker.
Was that the Slade guitar?
Slade guitar.
Dave Hill.
He made a
that looked a bit like a kind of Stratocaster meets SG, didn't it?
Yeah. Really interesting thing. But anyway, Sam Lee had obviously used 4-var wire and you've got a grey cable coming out of it. So this is where Alan's done a deep dive into it and come up with this pickup, which really, to my ears, it's sounded closer than the Mojo pickups got, he's really nailed it.
So the first time I heard these pickups was when Phil Harris did a demo of them. And Phil Harris has been through lots of real Les Pauls. He knows his way around a Les Paul.
Yeah,
and he made these pickups sound really good. And I kind of thought that's the first in between. We've been playing entirely in the middle position for that first piece of music.
Yeah,
and it's the first time I'd heard that middle position sounding in that greeny sound, that lovely reedy melodic sweet sound.
It's got that because it's all about Greeny used to just play with the pickup, the volumes here
all the time,
all the time. So it's just playing with it, because obviously if you put the bridge down a bit and boost the neck, you're going to get a more hollow, more full sort of neck sound. But if you do the opposite, so bring this one down, bring more lead, pick up.
So you're doing that. You can just imagine when you speak to people who actually saw Peter Green play back in those early days. Apparently, he was just riding his controls all the time, right? And what you just did there, you went between two classic Peter Green tones, just like that. So it kind of adds to that. Yeah, it adds credibility to the myth.
Yes,
if you like.
Yes, yeah.
So. Yeah. We both independently listened to these pickups and thought, wow, they sound interesting. You then bit the bullet and actually went ahead and got a set.
Yes.
Which are on this guitar.
Yep.
And I think partly through his own means and partly probably with my encouragement after seeing this, Tony went for the same thing. So we both got the Dingwall pickups. what's interesting, and I hadn't spotted until we ran the camera this morning, is that at the moment Tony's got the neck pickup round the right way with the screws near the neck.
But it's the wrong way if you want the Peter Green thing, because Peter Green had his 4 pieces. Again, Sam Lee would have done this. Sam Lee probably looked at the bridge pickup and thought, oh, I'll do it the same way as that.
Or it could have, I mean, back in the day it could have been anything, an honest mistake, anything.
Yes.
But you're right, so I don't know about, so we may be comparing apples and pears still, but they're pretty close apples and pears.
Yeah.
And it's unusual to be able to compare, 2 of these, and then we'll get the real one out later and have a, shoot out there too. So, just really kind of interesting guitars, both very good.
My question to you, Bob, would be, why would a player want to go to a replica builder rather than, say, a legit Gibson was it R8, R9? Can you explain that?
God, don't get me started. Right, because they're better. That's the simple answer. The long answer, you could go on for a fortnight with the answer to that question about why are they better, or crucially, why is the incumbent manufacturer, Gibson, incapable of producing guitars like it used to, right? But these replicas, they're not all good. Some of them are overpriced. I mean, in a previous video, we've talked about Terry Morgan, who's sadly no longer with us. But Terry Morgan's a highly revered manufacturer of Les Paul knockoffs, Gibson logo and all.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've had the good fortune to play a number of them in circulation now. I have to say, I don't want to offend many of my friends, but I've been generally pretty unimpressed with them. They're better than Gibson R9s or R6s or whatever.
But we agree, there was one particular one, we won't say which one, but we were very unimpressed with that one, weren't we?
Very unimpressed. Yeah. There was one I was really impressed with. A friend of mine had a Gold Top 57 knockoff.
I think I played that.
It was great.
I think there's actually a video. If you Google on YouTube, Terry Morgan, Ramon Goose, you'll see that very guitar.
So that one was great. So, but for many years, Terry was kind of the de facto British burst replica.
A guy knocking them out in the back garden shed. Yeah.
And there's no doubt, a lot of care, a lot of study, a lot of craft went into these things, all the rest of it. The truth is, I just think even the price points you're talking about now, which are pushing up towards 10 grand, I think it's maybe uneconomic for a corporation to actually do the necessary yards on one of these guitars to produce a real replica, whereas for a boutique builder, maybe they're just more driven and motivated or less greedy, I don't know.
Because again, you've got to think, if you go to the replica route, most customers want the Brazilian board and the Honduras wood, which is not always that easy to get, and a lot of builders don't like using those woods. And it's a question: does it make a difference what wood you use?
And I would say if you're into this area, bursts and the angels and pinheads thing, I think it probably does.
Right.
A bit like you're involved in the moment down your rabbit hole of creating a Marshall GTM 45.
Yeah.
And you've sourced the right transformers and the right, vintage components.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Cliff Brown, who makes 633 amps, he will tell you that there is no difference between the sound of a capacitor with oil, paper, and fish paste in it. Right? Nothing at all.
He's probably right there.
He will tell you that the resistors can sound quite different. That's his personal view as an amp builder. Yeah. But you've actually gone, okay, but I'm not going to I'm just going to go for accuracy.
I'm just going to recreate
whether it makes that particular component contributes or not.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a great starting point, because you take that out of the argument. It's not like, oh, well, it would have been great if you'd had the fish paste capacitor.
Yeah.
Instead, you can go, this is exactly as close as we can get in 2024 as was in 66.
Yeah, because all the components are from 66.
So there you go. So back to Les Pauls. So, there's lots of people building these things, because obviously people have realised that you can turn a bit of wood and a few pickups into quite a profit if you make a good one. There's lots of people making them, including Gibson, replicating their own.
Which they kind of get better every year, because they do publish facts. Now we've changed these little things, and I think there was one advert about maybe 5-6 years ago where it said we've made 70 different changes. It's like, well, wait a minute, why weren't you making those changes 15 years ago when you first released it?
I mean, let's face it, if anybody's got the documentation,
it's going to be them.
You own it.
Yeah.
Right? And the copyright, the intellectual property, all the rest of it. And the other thing is, if you're one of these guys, and we're probably talking to a lot of you now, who've gone out and spunked out $7,500 for an R8. Is it an R8?
R7, R8, R9.
Okay, that lot, right? I mean, certainly over $5,000, right? And then somebody comes along and tells you that we made 70 improvements. You go, well, what about me?
Or you find out that your one's got holes in it.
And so on. So, you know, it's a bit of a porous argument. Whereas the replica builders, I mean, they haven't got to, well, they're striving for accuracy. But, you know, for example, the conversation with one of the makers of these a couple of years ago indicated that all the plans that were available online had the channeling for the pickup wire going across the guitar, the diagonal channel, was all in the wrong place. It certainly wasn't in the place of my real 58. So, you know, that's all up for grabs. Anyway, however you do it, even if you make the whole guitar out of fish paste, but it sounds incredible, that's what we're supposed to be about as guitarists.
Exactly.
You
It's
know,
not about the sound, but about tone. You know?
about the sound and the playing and the tone, you know, but obviously, rather than trying to make a guitar out of fish paste, it's much better if you just start with the right materials. Hence this video.
So anyway, to recap, these are the two, Bob. These are the two. In England, we're talking about England here. These are the two well-known replica makers at the moment. Although Stig has just retired, you know, and Daniels is kind of more or less going off on to his own models. But the Stig and Daniels, these were replica builders, you know, around the last 5 years who were really doing some nice, you know, replica building out. You know?
Yeah, I think so. And have done it long enough,
Yeah.
you know, like Terry Morgan, to have made all the mistakes. That's
Absolutely, yeah.
that's the important bit, because nobody's perfect, nobody's brilliant, and there's guesswork involved. And the only way you can get closer is by making something and not quite getting it right. And
Yeah. I mean, Terry Morgan's, I think the early Terry Morgan's had the wrong carve and maybe the wrong angle or something, and the paint job wasn't that great. But
Now-
then he got really good towards the
when
end.
we come to paint jobs, are we going to mention that recent video of...
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, so the manufacturer of this guitar, the maker, I should say, of this guitar, put a video up recently that has caused some hate. People are welcome to hate if they want, but
We'll put the link. We'll put
the
link.
video is fascinating. He basically gets some adhesive tape and puts it along the back of a modern Tom Murphy distressed
Sort of here.
Gibson R8, along here,
Yeah.
and then pulls it off. Along with most of the finish. You've got to watch this. It's shocking. Hate aside, how anybody can let that product out of their studio or factory or whatever. If it was this guitar and I did that and it all came off, I would be saying bad things about it. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's an amazing video. And it shows I don't know whether it's representative or whether it's bad luck, but it shows what's going on in this mad space.
These are £10,000 guitars. These are expensive instruments.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
And frankly, I mean, you know, back to an old riff, these are instruments that are mainly owned and played by second-rate players because the first-rate players can't afford to own them.
yeah, it's that kind of dichotomy of vintage and cheap, and then the ones in the middle, which are 10 grand.
And you know, I mean, I'm a gentleman amateur player. That's all I am. So I count myself firmly
More
as
than a
part of the
he's
problem.
a gentleman and more than an amateur. You know?
Well, but I count myself as part of the problem here. You know, so no hypocrisy, okay? But at the same time, you know, you've watched other videos and you know I'm decent enough to say, you know, the last videos I've done have been with my £239 Fender Cabronita, which I still think I'm in love with completely, and it's so cheap, you know. So you know, at least I'm not a total snob. It hasn't got to be like £100 guitar before I get out of bed. Quite the reverse.
But you know, there's something beautiful about the Les Paul, and when you get it right, when you hold one like these replicas, when you hold one that's really got it together, there's something beautiful, something magical about it. Because
There is.
you know, but that, you know, if somebody could have an Epiphone Les Paul and maybe make some changes or just get really into it, and that can be their magical guitar. I'm not saying that Epiphone, you know, someone who has an Epiphone will never experience it, but you know, with these replicas, you know, it is really great because you can kind of get in. It's like an actor, like a method actor, you know, getting into the role.
Yeah.
You know, if you're playing a Clapton lick or you're playing an Eagles Joe Walsh line or whatever you're doing, you know, you put one of these on and it's that violin sound and
Yeah.
you know, puts you into the picture. You know?
Yeah, so it's really all depends. I mean, you've used the word, the violin sound. That's kind of one of the important sounds that came out of a burst was that violin sound.
Yeah.
And it's really whether or not you can get pretty close to that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You know, that's the sound. So I think one of the best violin sounds came out of Mick Taylor when he was with the Rolling Stones. That was really violin-y.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. But equally, his work on Crusade album was great, wasn't it? The
Blues Breakers album. Yeah.
That had some beautiful, creamy violin sounds, you know. But it's that violin, you know, that's what the British blues guys were about, was, you know, strapping a Les Paul on, playing through a Marshall JCM 45 and getting that violin tone, you know. And the American dudes, you know, depending which era, you know, like Steve Ray Vaughan was more the Fender
Strat.
strap through the reverb and the super reverb, you know. So, you know, it's different kind of thing, you know, because obviously a JTM 45 is really working well when it's got that violin sound. Maybe if you want a clean sound, you know, maybe it's not going to be the best amp in the world for a pure clean sound.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, the other thing you should say is obviously, you know, we're in, you know, my guitar room here. We can make a fair amount of noise in this room, but we're not playing very loud. So the amps aren't really overdriving. And the thing about these guitars, Les Pauls, is really they're all about overdrive. That once the amp is overdriving, whether it's a Marshall or a Fender, but particularly a Marshall, because then the other thing is, I've said this before, good ones, good replicas and originals, they're very light and bright to play. They don't feel at all like a regular modern Les Paul, which is a dark guitar.
Yeah, I mean, you can hear it even on this one here.
They're quite bright. And of course, you know, that historical magic of the Les Paul through the Marshall. The Marshall is not the brightest amp in the world. It's got plenty of middle, plenty of bite, but a little bit attenuated at the top end compared to a Fender.
And it's got a lot of bass as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of bass in there.
And so when you listen to Clapton, you know, doing the down there, but with overdrive, you get this wonderful warm. It's like soup.
Yeah.
Or Mick Taylor again. Although Mick Taylor, I preferred the sound he got. Well, I've still got Peter Green sound set up, but up there, that's where he gets violin. You know, right? That's the bridge. The other thing is, I love playing on the net pickup, which again isn't a very Les Paul thing to do. Most of the famous Les Paul solos are balls out bridge. You've got the covers off there to give it even more.
Yeah, it's just a silly little thing really, because with the Alan Dingwall pickups, I kind of figured, okay, that's the Peter Green pickup, and that's the Eric Clapton pickup, you know. And in the Blues Breakers, he took the cover off, which I think it was. Did he have black and white or white and black? I can't quite remember, but anyway, you know, that's more the Eric Clapton thing, and he actually said in an interview that taking the covers off make it more aggressive, but you know, Eric Clapton's no scientist, is he? So,
well, you know, back in the 70s on my SG, you know, I read that article.
Yeah.
And, you know, whipped the covers off my SG. And it did. It made it sharper and it made it louder. A bit.
There you go, guys.
It worked.
Yeah. And I like the kind of look. It's just a bit more sort of raw sort of looking, and this is very gentlemanly. This is a gentlemanly sort of polite.
A gentleman's guitar.
Yes. Savile Row, you know, sort of.
But it'd be interesting to see how, once this one, you know, ages up. So basically, when the finish is a little bit less shiny, and when the light has got to the red dyes and just dumbed them down a bit, it'd be interesting to see how this one kind of ages up. I think it's going to look really good.
Yeah, because this had it was almost like a kind of a dark burst. This one was, but now it's kind of turned into a T burst.
Yeah.
But this had a really big, thick, sort of quite big brown sort of thing here.
So that's really faded in.
It's really faded. Yeah.
And it's got, for me, it's got a mixture of these things which are called medullary lines along here, and it's got some flame in it. But it's not super panto flaming.
No, it's not.
I mean, this is a bit more super panto flaming. But you know, again, neither of these are over the top. You know, the thing about some of the American books, you know, they've got those what I call Playboy Bunny guitars, which are just amazing to look at, and they're lit to perfection. So you get every stripe and quilt, and they do look astonishing.
Yeah.
Then again, you know, you get Mark Knopfler on these guitars, and he says, no, I want a 1958 plain
one.
Les Paul. I think they sound better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There you go.
I know. They all sound fantastic to me. Shall we get the real one out?
Let's get the real one
and play against.
Yeah, you do the AB.
Yeah. The other thing we can do, we should say here, we're playing through my Fender Deluxe Reverb reissue. That's what Ramon's playing through. I'm playing through my pawn shop Excelsior, cheap 1x15. So we're using amps that are not giving these guitars any help, any leg up. They're really nice amps.
Yes.
But they're not boutique, you know, throw money at it amps. They're regular amps. And you know, I mean, we should actually, the first thing we should do is we should just swap.
Yeah, let's just change it.
And maybe even play another verse of Greenie.
Let's do it.
Just one.
One each.
One each. Yeah, just because. Let's offset for the fact that we're.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now, here's an interesting thing. So how did that feel playing through this amp? Did it feel better or worse?
Yeah, I had to make a kind of adjustment because I was playing it. Ooh, that's really raw. So it's a much more raw amp than the kind of black face.
I agree. I found playing this through the Deluxe. So normally, I'd love this Excelsior. It's my main gigging amp, 11 watts, 1x15. But playing through this through the Deluxe felt much better for me.
Right, yeah.
Much better.
Yeah, it's sweeter and you don't have to, kind of control it so much with your fingers.
Yeah.
This thing here, it's bare, there's no reverb,
Yeah.
you've got to, it's all from the fingers. You've got to really, you're kind of like, oh, okay, I've got to back off here,
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's a lot of fun though,
A lot of fun. Well, as you can see, it's really interesting. So we just swapped the amps there, but kept the guitars the same way around. I mean, the only other thing we could do if we had all day is I've got a switch, which means we can actually A/B different guitars through the same amp. But I think the most important thing now is let's move on. Let's get the real deal out.
Yeah.
And then have a punch up between each of these and that. Yeah. Right. So we'll sync up again. Right. Let's go. Here we are at part 2. We've changed guitars. I'm now on the 2 replicas with an A/B switch. Ramon is on the 58. Right.
So, Bob, what is your verdict then? Because you've owned this one for many, many decades. A couple of decades at least, 3 decades?
Yeah, about 25 years, 27 years, yeah.
So how does this compare to these, or how do these two compare to each other?
They're getting well close. I'm loving playing both of these replicas. They're really good. Right, I've met enough. But I mean, having said that, I'd put these up against quite a few bursts that I've played, because not all bursts are fantastic. Okay, that's my guitar. I'm in love with it. I'm so used to it, so I'm really biased. But these are really, really good guitars, and these, particularly for this middle position, these pickups are really fantastic.
Wow.
But, definitely for this particular job, they're the best I've come across so far.
And the kind of feel about the feel on the necks, and
so I would say I prefer the Daniels at the moment, because the Daniels, it's just been more played. You've played it more. That is still almost wet paint. So both the colour, the red is going to fade into brown and then into tea, and also the neck is definitely at the moment really quite new and quite shiny.
Right.
It just needs a bit of
being
duffed up, really. I mean, maybe actually encouragement with some very fine grit emery.
Right.
Wouldn't do anyone. Just
because the back of this 58, this is not glossy at all. It's just you can really.
From where I'm sitting, it looks glossy. Yeah. But when you feel it, it's somehow not.
It's got that nice patina, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the one thing I like about both these guitars is if you're going to make a replica like this, like these, do not be afraid of the neck size. The neck size on these guitars is not small, modern and slender. It's chunky.
Yeah.
It's not huge tree trunk.
No.
But it's
a size. It's a fair
It's
size.
not ashamed of itself. It's not trying to be. Whereas, why I don't like playing 60 bursts as much is because they do get a bit flatter. Some people love them. They're really fast to play. But and on my ESs that neck works really well. But on a burst, I want something to throttle.
Yeah, because it's a big chunk of wood, isn't it? So you want to kind of match that with the neck, so it's all a big, nice piece of.
I think so. I think so. So
hangs together.
Unfair comparison, because I mean, again, you're talking. Every time I look up the value of these things, I just get more and more, excited and dismayed. You call it what? But I mean, in America now, dealers are talking about $400,000. Most people are now pitching these things over here at £300,000 plus. They're not usually fetching them unless they're really fancy.
Yeah.
So they're probably having to drop back maybe 20 grand on that asking price.
Because of the burst.
That's still, that's the cost of a property, let alone a car.
But are we talking like flame? Is it the plain tops versus the flames?
Well,
or is it just a condition?
The thing is, it's different in America because there are so many more of these things. There are more high-end dealers and more of them. If you look at, for example, I get Carter Vintage Guitars weekly roundup of what they've got coming through, and they get more decent guitars through in a week than we see as a country in a year. So they're spoilt for choice. Whereas over here, there is a bit of a shortage.
But like England has a love affair with the Les Paul because of the
British blues.
Yeah, it's a real the Les Paul is synonymous with the kind of London blues scene.
And the whole mad story about a bunch of middle class white South London boys basically taking a Native American art form and playing with it and twisting it and then sending it back. It's an unbelievable story.
Yeah. With the Marshall amp as well.
With the Marshall amp being quite crucial.
Because you had the Allman Brothers suddenly turn up with Marshall amps. And
I mean, again, the price of Marshall amps in the States now is
that gone up?
It's insane.
I think it's $20,000 or something for a JTM 45, right?
That's a lot of money.
But I think.
But it's the sound.
Yeah, I think maybe I've seen JTM 45s in England around £12,000. But that's if they got the transformers. Without the transformers, you're looking maybe 8,000.
And people are selling off those transformers. The vultures are taking the transformers out of things, and they're selling them for what, a couple of grand a piece?
£2,000. Well, I mean, there was one up. There's a guy on Reverb. He had one for 2,300, and now he's dropped it to 1,600.
Right.
But I think when they get a load of my video, it'll probably go back up to 2,000.
But then I'm not sitting in a glass house trying to throw stones here. I mean, remember these pickup surrounds, these bits of white plastic. You know, the real authentic ones. I mean, they go for, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Crazy.
Piece of plastic. Do you know, you did raise an interesting issue to close though, which is as these makers get better, and they are all getting better, these are really good. If they're still continuing, then there comes a point where they will have the confidence to put their own name on the headstock.
I think that's, and maybe they'll be worth more because of it.
I mean, at the moment, there's no question that, you know, if you can pass something off as one of those, then that's where the money is.
Yeah.
But eventually, there's going to be an audience that goes, again, I don't care if it's made out of fish paste, but if it plays and sounds the way it should.
Yeah.
So look, wrapping up, let's close with an advertisement for the future.
Yeah.
So we've been threatening for a while to do a live show, and basically we haven't done it yet, so we just haven't got our fingers out. But as soon as we can master the technology, we're going to try it. So we're going to invite, not only in the comments, you know, we love the comments we're getting, all the feedback we're getting from you guys, we love that, it's an honour. And we're going to try and make that slightly more interactive. So first of all, do feedback about this video, tell us what you think, tell us whether you agree or disagree, whether the differences are just angels on pinheads flying around this room or whether they actually come through, you know, on the video, do tell us.
Yeah.
But also, prepare, you know, in the good old BBC political journalist's fashion, prepare all your most difficult questions for when you are about to confront us live in probably just a few minutes' time.
Yeah, and you can ask us anything you like.
Yeah, well, you know, at your own risk.
Don't ask Bob about politics.
Or don't ask him about politics.
No.
Crazy. Right. Enough of this right-wing gammon stuff. Until next time then, it's goodbye from
him, and it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from Ramon. Thanks guys for watching. See you next time.